Chen's hands are trembling as he kneels beside his 6-year-old niece Sophia, her small fingers gripping his expensive Italian suit jacket like a lifeline. The words she just whispered are still echoing in his mind, each syllable hitting him like a physical blow. "Uncle Alex, there's a camera in your office." The charity gala continues around them, Manhattan's elite sipping champagne worth more than most people's monthly salaries. But Alex feels like he's drowning in a soundproof bubble. The orchestra plays, crystal glasses clink, and somewhere in this glittering crowd, his fiancée Isabella is probably charming another board member with that devastating smile that first captured his heart 18 months ago. "What kind of camera, sweetheart?" His voice comes out steadier than he feels, but Sophia's dark eyes, so much like his sister's, are wide with a kind of fear that makes his chest tighten. The tiny kind. Like in the spy movies. She glances around nervously before pressing closer to him. "The lady put it there yesterday when you were in the bathroom. She thought I was asleep on the couch, but I was just pretending. Mommy says I'm good at pretending." The lady. Alex's blood turns to ice water in his veins. There's only one woman who has access to his private office, who knows his schedule well enough to plant something while he's distracted, who Sophia would recognize and not immediately question. Isabella. His Isabella, with her cascading auburn hair and those green eyes that seem to see straight through to his soul. The woman who makes him coffee every morning in his penthouse kitchen, who knows he takes it black with just a hint of honey. The woman who laughs at his terrible jokes and falls asleep reading legal briefs in his arms. The woman he's planning to marry in 3 months, who's been helping him expand his tech empire across 3 continents. Welcome back to the channel, my sweet and loyal family. Before we begin, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's continue. The woman who, if Sophia is right, has been watching him, recording him, betraying him in the most intimate way possible. Where exactly did you see her put it? The question scrapes against his throat like broken glass. Sophia points toward the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, visible through the glass walls of the conference room where they're hiding from the gala's chaos. Behind the big plant. The one with the pretty flowers that smells like vanilla. The orchid. Isabella bought him that orchid for his birthday last month, insisted on placing it in the perfect spot where it would catch the morning light. He teased her about her sudden interest in horticulture, never questioning why she'd spent so much time adjusting its position. Never questioning anything about Isabella, because he'd been too busy falling impossibly, completely, devastatingly in love with her. Uncle Alex. Sophia's voice is small, worried. "Did I do something wrong? You look like you're going to be sick." He forces his face into something resembling calm, though his heart is hammering against his ribs hard enough to crack them. "No, baby. You did exactly right. You're very brave for telling me." But inside, he's screaming. Because 18 months ago, Chen was the most careful man in New York. His tech company, Chen Industries, handled classified government contracts, cutting-edge AI development, and security systems for half the Fortune 500. He didn't date. He didn't trust. He certainly didn't fall in love with mysterious beautiful women who appeared in his life like they'd stepped out of a dream. Until Isabella walked into his office on a rainy Tuesday morning, claiming to be the new cybersecurity consultant his assistant had hired. Until she smiled at him and everything else stopped mattering. God, he'd been such a fool. "Uncle Alex, are you going to tell on the pretty lady?" Sophia asks, and there's something in her tone that makes him look at her more carefully. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "She's always nice to me. She brings me those cookies I like and reads me stories when I visit. But..." Sophia chews on her lower lip, a habit she's picked up from her mother. "But she asks funny questions sometimes. About you and work and stuff. And she gets this look on her face when she thinks nobody's watching. Like she's pretending to. Like she's pretending to." The words hit him like a sledgehammer to the chest. Because suddenly, he's remembering all the little things he'd dismissed. The way Isabella sometimes seemed to know things about his business dealings before he told her. How she'd steered conversations toward specific topics, his government contracts, his research partnerships, his security protocols. The phone calls she'd take in the other room, speaking in rapid Italian he'd assumed were conversations with her family in Rome. The way she'd insisted on helping him redecorate his office 6 months ago, claiming she wanted to make it more welcoming for when they were married. When they were married. The phrase that used to fill him with warmth now feels like poison spreading through his bloodstream. Through the glass walls, he can see Isabella across the ballroom, stunning in the emerald dress they'd picked out together last week. She's laughing at something Senator Morrison is saying, her hand resting lightly on the older man's arm in a gesture that looks perfectly innocent but Alex now recognizes as calculated. She's positioned herself perfectly to overhear his conversation with the Defense Department liaison, close enough to catch every word about the new military AI contract he's been negotiating. How long has she been playing him? The question claws at his insides like a living thing. I think the pretty lady might be in trouble, Sophia whispers, following his gaze. She looks sad sometimes when she doesn't know anyone's looking. Really, really sad. Like she doesn't want to be pretending anymore. And that's when Alex sees it, the moment Isabella's mask slips. Just for a second, when she thinks nobody's watching, her face transforms. The brilliant smile fades, her shoulders slump almost imperceptibly, and there's something in her expression that looks almost like regret? Pain? Or is that just another performance? He can't trust his own judgment anymore. Can't trust anything he thought he knew about the woman he'd planned to spend his life with. We need to go back to the party now, he tells Sophia, his voice sounding foreign to his own ears. But this stays between us for now, okay? Our secret. Like a spy secret. Sophia's eyes brighten with a thrill of conspiracy. Exactly like that. As they walk back toward the ballroom, Alex's mind is already racing ahead, cataloging everything he needs to do. Sweep his office for surveillance equipment. Review his security footage. Check his files to see what information might have been compromised. Contact his head of security, maybe even the FBI if this goes as deep as he's starting to suspect. But first, he needs to get through the next hour without revealing that his entire world has just imploded. He needs to smile and shake hands and pretend that his heart isn't lying in pieces at his feet. He needs to look at the woman he loves. Loved? Still loves? How can he still love her when she's been lying to him? And pretend he doesn't know she's been betraying him from the very beginning. Isabella turns as they approach, her face lighting up with genuine warmth that makes his chest ache. There you are. I was wondering where my two favorite people had disappeared to. She reaches for his hand, and for a moment, he almost pulls away. But then her fingers intertwine with his, and muscle memory takes over. This is Isabella. His Isabella. The woman who cries at sad movies and leaves little notes in his laptop case when he travels. The woman who makes him laugh until his sides hurt and who's the first person he wants to call when something good happens. The woman who's been spying on him for God knows how long. Just giving Sophia a break from all the excitement, he says, proud of how normal his voice sounds. You know how overwhelming these events can be. Such a thoughtful uncle. Isabella's smile is radiant as she bends down to Sophia's level. Did you have fun exploring, little one? It was very educational, Sophia says solemnly, and Alex has to bite back a laugh despite everything. His niece has always been precocious, but right now, her serious tone is perfect. I'm sure it was. Isabella straightens, and for just a moment, her eyes meet Alex's. There's something there, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe even fear, that he's never seen before. Does she know that he knows? The thought sends a chill down his spine. What do you think Isabella is really thinking in this moment? Is she starting to suspect that her cover might be blown, or is there something deeper going on? Drop a comment below and let me know what you're sensing from her character. I love hearing your insights on these complex emotional dynamics. 3 hours later, Alex's penthouse feels like a beautifully appointed prison. The gala is over, the guests have gone home, and now it's just him and Isabella in the space that used to feel like sanctuary. She's in his kitchen, humming softly as she makes their traditional post-event chamomile tea, a ritual they started after their first public appearance together, when she'd noticed how drained these social performances left him. Another carefully calculated move? The thought poisons everything, turning even her kindness into potential manipulation. You were quieter than usual tonight, Isabella calls from the kitchen, and he can hear the clink of porcelain against marble. Everything okay? Alex stands at the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, watching the city lights blur through the glass. His reflection stares back at him, 34 years old, worth more money than he can spend in 3 lifetimes, and completely shattered by the whispered words of a 6-year-old girl. Just tired, he says, which isn't entirely a lie. He's exhausted in a way that goes deeper than bone, the kind of soul-deep weariness that comes from having your entire reality restructured in the span of a single conversation. Isabella appears beside him with 2 steaming mugs, her heels abandoned somewhere in the hallway. She's changed into one of his MIT t-shirts, the emerald dress pooled on their bedroom floor, and seeing her like this, barefoot, rumpled, utterly gorgeous in the way that used to make his heart stop, feels like being stabbed and kissed simultaneously. Their bedroom. When did he start thinking of it that way? When did Isabella become so seamlessly woven into the fabric of his life that he can't imagine the space without her? The Morrison conversation went well, she says, settling into the leather chair beside him. He seemed very interested in your AI ethics framework. And there it is, the gentle probe disguised as supportive interest. Alex's hands tighten around his mug, but he forces his voice to remain casual. Senator Morrison is always interested in anything that might advance his oversight committee's agenda. Smart man. Though I got the impression he was fishing for information about the defense contracts too. Isabella takes a sip of her tea, watching him over the rim with those devastating green eyes. Good thing you're so careful about keeping work and social separate. Is she testing him? The question wraps around his throat like a noose. Because 18 months ago, when Isabella first walked into his life, he hadn't been careful at all. He'd been reckless in a way that terrified him, opening up to her with a speed and completeness that should have sent every alarm bell in his head screaming. Instead, he'd been enchanted. It was the way she'd looked at his office that first day, not impressed by the wealth or the view, but fascinated by the wall of whiteboards covered in code and algorithms. Most people saw the expensive art and custom furniture. Isabella had walked straight to his work, running her fingers along the equations like she was reading poetry. You're trying to teach machines to understand human emotion, she'd said, not asked. But you're approaching it backwards. Backwards. You're starting with logic and trying to layer feeling on top. But emotion isn't logical. It's chaos. Beautiful, terrible chaos that creates its own patterns. And then she'd picked up one of his markers and added a single line to his equation, a tiny modification that suddenly made everything click into place. 6 months of work, solved in 30 seconds by a woman who claimed to be a cybersecurity consultant but thought like a theoretical physicist. He should have known then. Alex. Isabella's voice pulls him back to the present. She's watching him with concern, her mug forgotten in her lap. You're somewhere else entirely. Sorry. Just thinking about the Morrison thing. He sits down across from her, the coffee table between them feeling like an ocean. You're right about him fishing. He's been after information about the military contracts for months. And you've been brilliantly evasive about it. Her smile is warm, proud, and completely devastating. I love watching you work a room. You make it look effortless, but I can see the chess game happening in your head. 3 moves ahead of everyone else. Apparently not ahead of you. The words burn in his throat, unspoken. Speaking of chess, Isabella continues, curling her legs under her in that unconsciously graceful way that still makes his breath catch. Remember our conversation about the European expansion? Of course. The European expansion that would require him to share proprietary algorithms with overseas partners. The expansion that Isabella had been subtly encouraging for months, always with perfectly logical reasons that had nothing to do with corporate espionage. What about it? I've been thinking about your concerns regarding intellectual property protection. She leans forward, animated in the way she gets when she's working through a complex problem. What if we approached it differently? And for the next 20 minutes, Isabella unfolds a strategy that's absolutely brilliant. She's identified security vulnerabilities he hadn't considered, proposed solutions that would actually strengthen his position, and found ways to expand internationally while keeping his most sensitive research locked down tight. It's perfect. Too perfect. Because this is what's been driving him slowly insane for 18 months. Isabella isn't just beautiful, isn't just charming. She's genuinely brilliant, with insights that have made his company stronger and his work better. If she's been spying on him, she's also been helping him in ways that make no strategic sense. Unless the help was part of the cover. Unless making him dependent on her insights was always part of the plan. You're not listening again, Isabella says softly, and when he looks up, she's studying him with an expression he can't quite read. Alex, what's wrong? And don't say nothing. I know you. Do you? The question screams in his head. Do you know me, or do you know the version of me you've constructed from months of surveillance and careful manipulation? But looking at her now, seeing the genuine concern in her eyes, the way she's unconsciously mirroring his posture, the slight frown that appears between her eyebrows when she's worried about him, it all feels so real. So authentically Isabella. I've been thinking about us, he says finally, and it's not entirely a lie. Us. Something flickers across her face. Hope, fear, he can't tell which. About how fast this happened. How we went from strangers to. He gestures between them, encompassing the shared space, the easy intimacy, the ring he gave her 6 months ago that's currently sparkling on her finger like a tiny star. To engaged, she finishes quietly. To engaged. He stands, needing movement, and walks back to the window. It scared me at first. How much I wanted you. How quickly you became essential. Scared you. Isabella's voice is carefully neutral, but when he turns around, she's gripping her mug like a lifeline. Terrified me. And this, at least, is completely true. I'd never let anyone that close before. Never wanted to. My work, my life, it was clean. Controlled. Safe. And then I ruined everything by existing? There's a slight smile in her voice, but her eyes are serious. You ruined everything by making me need you. The words come out rawer than he intended, scraped up from somewhere deep in his chest. By making me want things I'd never wanted. A future that wasn't just about work and profit margins and proving I was worth something. Isabella sets down her mug and crosses to him, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. When she's close enough to touch, she stops, looking up at him with an expression that makes his heart crack wide open. Alex. His name is a whisper on her lips. You've always been worth something. Worth everything. And then her hands are framing his face, and she's kissing him with a desperation that matches his own. She tastes like chamomile and secrets, like promises and lies, like the most beautiful catastrophe of his life. He kisses her back because he can't help himself, because 18 months of muscle memory and emotional conditioning don't disappear just because his brain knows better. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Isabella rests her forehead against his. I love you, she whispers, and the words hit him like bullets. I love you so much it terrifies me too. Is that real? The question tears through him. How can I tell what's real anymore? Isabella. Her name tastes like heartbreak on his tongue. I know, she says, and for a moment, he wonders if she actually does know. If she's about to confess everything, to explain why she's been watching him, to give him some reason that doesn't destroy everything they've built together. Instead, she takes his hand and leads him toward the bedroom, and he follows because he's weak, because he loves her, because tomorrow he'll have to decide what to do with the knowledge that's eating him alive, but tonight he just wants to pretend that the woman he's going to marry isn't his enemy. Here's what I'm wondering, is Isabella's I love you genuine, or is she just an incredibly skilled manipulator? And if it is real, does that make the betrayal better or worse? I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether someone can truly love the person they're betraying. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. As Isabella leads him down the hallway, Alex catches sight of himself in the mirror that hangs beside their bedroom door. The man looking back at him is someone he barely recognizes, disheveled, desperate, caught between love and suspicion in a way that's destroying him from the inside out. Tomorrow, he tells himself. Tomorrow he'll search his office. Tomorrow he'll confront the truth about what Isabella has been doing, about who she really is. Tonight, he's just going to hold on to the lie a little longer, because letting go feels like dying. But some truths, once whispered by the innocent, can't be unheard. And some loves, once poisoned by betrayal, can never be cleansed. Alex lies awake for hours, listening to Isabella breathe beside him. Her body is curled against his, one arm thrown across his chest in sleep, and in the darkness of their bedroom, she looks so peaceful that he almost convinces himself Sophia was wrong. That there's some innocent explanation for everything. Almost. At 4:17 a.m., he carefully extricates himself from Isabella's embrace and slips out of bed. She murmurs something in Italian, reaching for him unconsciously, and the sound nearly breaks his resolve. But then he remembers Sophia's wide, frightened eyes, and he forces himself to move. The elevator ride down to his office feels endless. Chen Industries occupies the top 15 floors of the building, and at this hour, the place is tomb quiet except for the hum of servers and the distant sound of the night cleaning crew. Alex has his own key card, his own elevator access, his own private entrance that bypasses all the security checkpoints. The same access Isabella has had for the past 18 months. His office door slides open with a soft whisper, and he steps into the space that's been his sanctuary for 5 years. Floor-to-ceiling windows, custom walnut desk, the wall of awards and patents that represent his life's work. And there, in the corner where the morning light streams in, the white orchid Isabella gave him for his birthday. Behind the big plant. The one with the pretty flowers that smells like vanilla. Alex's hands are steady as he approaches the orchid, but his heart is hammering so hard he's surprised it doesn't wake the entire building. The plant is beautiful, exotic, with cascading white blooms that do indeed smell like vanilla. Isabella had been so proud when she'd found it, claiming she'd searched half of Manhattan for the perfect variety. The perfect variety for hiding surveillance equipment. He doesn't want to look. Some part of him is still hoping that Sophia was mistaken, that his 6-year-old niece simply has an overactive imagination fed by too many spy movies. But his fingers are already moving, carefully parting the broad leaves, feeling along the decorative pot's rim. And there it is. The camera is smaller than a button, practically invisible unless you know where to look. Professional grade, the kind of equipment used by intelligence agencies and high-end corporate espionage operations. It's positioned perfectly to capture his desk, his computer screen, the wall where he sometimes works through problems on whiteboards. How long has it been here? The question claws at his insides. How much has she seen? What has she heard? With shaking fingers, he carefully removes the device, studying it in the pale light from the windows. There's no brand marking, no serial number, nothing that would identify its source. But the craftsmanship is impeccable, and the battery indicator shows it's been active for months. Jesus, he whispers, and his voice sounds foreign in the quiet office. Because this isn't just about corporate espionage anymore. This camera would have captured everything. His private phone calls, his conversations with government liaisons, his late-night work sessions when he was developing the AI algorithms that could revolutionize military defense systems. It would have captured the moments when he talked to himself while working, muttering through problems and solutions. The times he'd called his sister to complain about work stress, revealing details about contracts and timelines that could be worth millions to the right buyer. The times he talked about Isabella herself, wondering aloud if he was moving too fast, if he could trust these feelings that had overwhelmed him so completely. His legs give out, and he sinks into his desk chair, the camera still clutched in his palm like a tiny piece of his own destruction. The betrayal is so complete, so thorough, that he can barely process it. Isabella hasn't just been lying to him, she's been systematically harvesting his entire professional life. But then his phone buzzes, and Isabella's name lights up the screen with a text message. Can't sleep without you. Coming to find you. She's coming here. Now. Panic floods his system, followed immediately by something that might be relief. Because part of him, the part that's been in love with her for 18 months, wants the confrontation. Wants to demand answers, to give her a chance to explain, to find some way that this nightmare makes sense. Alex pockets the camera and tries to compose himself, but when Isabella appears in his doorway 3 minutes later, he knows immediately that his face has given him away. Alex. She's wearing yoga pants and one of his hoodies, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, and she looks so achingly familiar that his chest tightens. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I have. The ghost of the woman I thought I loved. Couldn't sleep, he says, proud that his voice doesn't shake. Decided to get some work done. Isabella steps into the office, and Alex watches her eyes automatically scan the space, a habit he'd never noticed before but now seems glaringly obvious. Her gaze lingers for just a moment on the orchid in the corner, and something flickers across her face. She knows. You're upset about something, she says, closing the door behind her. And don't try to deny it. I can read you like a book by now. Can you? The bitter laugh wants to escape, but he swallows it down. Or have you just been taking very detailed notes? Isabella. Her name feels like broken glass in his mouth. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. She goes very still, and in that stillness, Alex sees confirmation of every fear that's been building in his chest. Because this isn't the stillness of confusion or concern. This is the stillness of someone who's been expecting this moment, dreading it, preparing for it. Okay, she says quietly. Who are you really? The question hangs between them like a blade, and Alex watches as Isabella's carefully constructed mask begins to crumble. Her shoulders drop, her breathing changes, and when she looks at him, there's something raw and desperate in her eyes that he's never seen before. Alex. The truth, Isabella. For once in our entire relationship, just tell me the truth. And then she does something that shatters him completely. She starts to cry. Not the elegant, controlled tears of someone trying to manipulate him, but ugly, broken sobs that seem to come from somewhere deep in her soul. She slides down the door until she's sitting on the floor, arms wrapped around her knees, and cries like her heart is breaking. "I'm sorry," she gasps between sobs. "God, Alex, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant to fall in love with you." Fall in love with me. The words hit him like a physical blow, because even now, even knowing what she's done, some part of him wants to believe them. "The camera," he says, pulling the device from his pocket. "How long has it been there?" Isabella looks at the small device in his palm, and fresh tears spill down her cheeks. 8 months, she whispers. "Since right after you proposed." Since right after he proposed. The timing is a knife twist in his chest, because that means she'd been watching him during the happiest period of his life. Recording his joy, his plans for their future, his private conversations about how much he loved her. Why? The word comes out broken. Isabella lifts her head, and her face is blotchy and swollen, but there's something fierce in her expression now. Something that looks almost like relief. "Because I work for the Italian intelligence service," she says, and even though he'd suspected something like this, hearing it confirmed makes the world tilt sideways. "My real name is Isabella Romano, and I was sent here to get close to you, to gather information about your government contracts." How close? His voice sounds dead even to his own ears. As close as necessary. She wipes her nose with the back of her hand, looking younger and more vulnerable than he's ever seen her. "Sleep with you, move in with you, marry you if that's what it took. Marry you if that's what it took." Each word is a bullet to the chest. "But that was before," Isabella continues, her voice gaining strength. "Before I knew you. Before I understood that you're not just some defense contractor looking to profit from military technology. Before I realized that you're trying to build something that could actually make the world safer, not more dangerous. Before you fell in love with me." The question comes out bitter, mocking. "Yes." Her answer is fierce, immediate. "Before I fell completely, stupidly, impossibly in love with you." Alex stares at her, trying to process the whiplash of emotions coursing through him. Rage, betrayal, heartbreak, but underneath it all, a terrible, persistent ache that might be hope. "Prove it," he says. "What?" "Prove that you love me. Prove that any of this has been real." Isabella gets to her feet, wiping her face with shaking hands. For a moment, she just looks at him, and he can see her wrestling with something, making some kind of internal decision. Then she pulls out her phone. "My handler's name is Marco Tessari," she says, scrolling through her contacts. "He's the one who recruited me, who sent me here. Every week for the past 18 months, I've been sending him reports about your work, your contracts, your security protocols." She shows him the phone, and Alex can see a long thread of messages in Italian, attachments that he assumes contain stolen information about his company. "But 3 months ago I stopped," Isabella continues. "I told Marco that you'd become suspicious, that I needed to back off to avoid blowing my cover. The truth was, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep betraying you when I was falling deeper in love with you every day." What do you think is harder to forgive, the initial betrayal, or the fact that Isabella continued the deception for months after falling in love with Alex? I'm curious about your take on whether love can truly coexist with betrayal, or if one automatically cancels out the other. Share your thoughts in the comments. Alex stares at the phone screen, trying to process what she's telling him. "You stopped feeding them information?" "I stopped giving them anything useful. The last few reports have been filled with false data misdirection, complete fabrications designed to send them chasing dead ends." Isabella's voice is getting stronger, more defiant. "I've been protecting you, Alex. For months now, I've been protecting you instead of betraying you." "Why?" The question scrapes against his throat. "Because somewhere between pretending to love you and actually loving you, I realize that you're not the enemy. Your work, your company, you're trying to build AI systems that prevent conflicts, not start them. You're trying to create technology that makes warfare obsolete, not more efficient. She takes a step toward him, her eyes blazing. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How many defense contractors I've investigated who were just looking to profit from human suffering? So you decided to switch sides. There's no hiding the skepticism in his voice. I decided to choose you. The words hit him like a physical force. I chose you over my country, over my career, over everything I'd been taught to believe was important. I chose you, and I've been living in terror for months that you'd find out before I could figure out how to tell you the truth. Alex looks at her, really looks at her, and sees something he's never noticed before. The dark circles under her eyes that makeup usually conceals. The way her hands shake slightly when she thinks he's not watching. The moments of distraction, of sadness, that he dismissed as work stress. She's been as tormented by this as I am. The engagement, he says slowly. Was any of that real? Isabella's face crumples again, but this time there's something desperate and hopeful in her expression. Alex, the night you proposed was the most terrifying night of my life. Because I wanted to say yes so badly, and I knew I didn't deserve to. I knew I was living a lie, but I also knew that my feelings for you were the most real thing I'd ever experienced. She moves closer, and he doesn't back away. When you got down on one knee in that restaurant, when you told me you couldn't imagine a future without me, her voice cracks. I almost confessed everything right there. Almost told you the truth because the idea of marrying you under false pretenses felt like the worst kind of sacrilege. But you didn't. No. I was too much of a coward. Too afraid of losing you. She reaches out as if to touch his face, then stops herself. I kept telling myself I'd find a way to come clean, to extract myself from the operation and start fresh with you. But every day that passed made it harder, made the lie bigger, made the truth more impossible to tell. Alex feels something shifting in his chest, a loosening of the knot of betrayal that's been strangling him. Because looking at Isabella now, seeing her raw, broken, completely vulnerable, he recognizes the woman he fell in love with. The woman who cries at animal rescue commercials and leaves encouraging notes in his briefcase when he's stressed about work. The woman who's been willing to commit treason for him. What happens now? He asks. I don't know. Isabella's voice is small, lost. Marco's been getting suspicious about my lack of useful intelligence. He's been pressuring me to deliver something significant, threatening to pull me out of the operation if I don't produce results soon. What kind of results? The military AI specifications. The defense contract details. Something concrete that proves the operation has been worth the time and resources they've invested. She looks at him with eyes full of pain. He's given me 2 weeks to deliver, or he's extracting me back to Rome. 2 weeks. The timeline hits Alex like a sledgehammer. 2 weeks until Isabella disappears from his life forever, until she becomes nothing more than a memory and a cautionary tale about the dangers of mixing business with pleasure. Unless he does something to stop it. Isabella. Her name is a prayer on his lips. If I help you, if we figure out a way to get you out of this, will you tell me everything? No more lies, no more secrets, no more pretending. Hope flickers in her eyes like a candle flame. Everything. Every detail of the operation, every lie I've told, every moment I've spent loving you when I had no right to. And then she's in his arms, and he's holding her like she's the most precious thing in the world, and they're both crying, for the trust that's been broken, for the love that's been tainted, for the impossible situation that's threatening to destroy them both. I love you, Isabella whispers against his chest. I know I don't deserve to say it anymore, but I love you so much it's killing me. I love you too, Alex admits, and the words feel like jumping off a cliff. I love you and I hate you, and I don't know how to reconcile those two things. We'll figure it out, Isabella says fiercely. Somehow, we'll figure it out. But even as he holds her, even as he breathes in the familiar scent of her shampoo and feels the warmth of her body against his, Alex knows that nothing will ever be the same between them. Love and betrayal, truth and deception, loyalty and treason. How do you build a future on such broken foundations? The answer terrifies him, because he's starting to realize that he's willing to find out. The next 3 weeks become the most intensely beautiful and terrifying period of Alex's life. Isabella keeps her word about complete honesty, and the revelations unfold like layers of an intricate puzzle. Her real background, graduated top of her class from Bocconi University with degrees in computer science and international relations, recruited by the AISC, Italian Foreign Intelligence, at 24, trained in psychological manipulation, cyber warfare, and what her handlers euphemistically called human asset development. Asset development, Alex repeats one morning over coffee, the term leaving a bitter taste in his mouth. They're in his kitchen, watching the sunrise paint Manhattan in shades of gold and rose, and Isabella is methodically destroying everything he thought he knew about their relationship. It's what they call it when you're trained to make people fall in love with you, she says, her fingers wrapped around her mug like it's anchoring her to reality. Psychological profiling, emotional manipulation, sexual psychology, all designed to create the perfect trap. And I walked right into it. You weren't supposed to be the target initially. Isabella's voice is quiet, matter of fact, but he can see the pain in her eyes. The original plan was to get close to your head of security, David Morrison. Seduce him, get access to your building systems, plant surveillance equipment throughout the offices. Alex feels something cold settle in his stomach. What changed? You interviewed me personally instead of letting HR handle it. And when you walked into that conference room. Isabella looks at him with an expression that's part wonder, part regret. I'd studied your psychological profile for months, Alex. I knew you were brilliant, driven, emotionally guarded. What I didn't know was that you'd be so genuinely kind. So funny. So completely different from every other Mark I'd been assigned. Mark. The word hits him like a slap, even though he knows that's what he was. Marco saw an opportunity, Isabella continues. The CEO was a much more valuable target than head of security. So the mission parameters changed. Get close to Alexander Chen. Gain his trust. Move in if possible. Gather intelligence on all military contracts and proprietary AI development. Move in if possible, Alex echoes. How romantic. Isabella sets down her coffee and reaches for his hand. Her fingers are warm, familiar, but now he notices the small scar on her knuckle that she'd claimed came from a cooking accident but probably came from combat training. Alex, I need you to understand something. The mission parameters changed, but so did I. Within a month of knowing you, I was already compromised. Within 3 months, I was actively sabotaging my own operation. How? Small things at first. Delayed reports, missing details, technical difficulties with surveillance equipment. Isabella's thumb traces across his knuckles, a gesture that's become as natural as breathing. But then you started talking about your work, your real work, and I realized that everything I'd been told about you was wrong. Alex remembers that conversation, late one night in his office, both of them working on a cybersecurity vulnerability she'd identified. He'd been explaining the ethical frameworks he was trying to build into his AI systems, the safeguards designed to prevent autonomous weapons development. You weren't trying to build better weapons, Isabella says. You were trying to make weapons obsolete. Trying to create systems that could predict and prevent conflicts before they started. It was the exact opposite of what my briefing materials suggested. So you decided to protect me instead of betray me. I decided to save you from people like me. Her voice breaks slightly. People who would steal your work and twist it into something horrible. People who would destroy everything beautiful you were trying to build. And that's when Alex understands the full scope of what Isabella has been risking for him. Not just her career or her freedom, but potentially her life. Intelligence agencies don't typically show mercy to agents who turn traitor, especially not for love. Isabella. Her name is soft on his lips. What happens to you when this is over? I don't know. She meets his eyes, and there's a fierce determination there that takes his breath away. But I know what happens if we don't try. Marco extracts me, I disappear forever, and you spend the rest of your life wondering if anything between us was real. And if we do try? Then maybe we get to find out what we could have been if we'd met under different circumstances. What we could have been. The phrase haunts Alex for days, because he's starting to realize that what they could be might be worth any risk. They develop a plan that's part spy thriller, part romantic comedy, and entirely insane. Isabella will feed Marco carefully crafted false intelligence, detailed enough to seem valuable, wrong enough to be useless. Meanwhile, Alex will use his government connections to offer Isabella asylum in exchange for everything she knows about AISE operations in the United States. It's not going to be easy, Alex warns her one evening as they work through the details. They're spread across his living room floor, surrounded by legal documents, classified protocol guidelines, and takeout containers from their favorite Thai place. The FBI is going to want to debrief you extensively. There will be polygraph tests, psychological evaluations, months of investigation. I know. Isabella looks up from the asylum paperwork, her hair falling across her face in a way that still makes his heart skip. But Alex, for the first time in 2 years, I'm not lying to anyone about who I am or what I want. What do you want? You. A life with you. A chance to build something real together. She reaches across the scattered papers to touch his hand. I want to wake up next to you every morning without wondering if today's the day you'll discover the truth. I want to help you with your work because I believe in it, not because I'm stealing it. I want to marry you because I love you, not because it's part of a mission. I want to marry you. The words hit him like a physical force, because somewhere in the chaos of betrayal and revelation, he'd forgotten that they're still engaged. The ring is still on her finger, catching the light as she gestures, and seeing it there makes his chest tight with a complicated mix of emotions. Isabella, he says carefully, about the engagement. I understand if you want to call it off. Her voice is steady, but he can see the fear in her eyes. I understand if you need time or space, or if you decide you can never trust me enough to. I don't want to call it off. The words surprise them both. Isabella stares at him, and Alex realizes he's never been more certain of anything in his life. I want to marry you, he continues, moving closer to her across the floor. I want to marry the real you. Isabella Romano, former Italian intelligence operative, current pain in my ass, future co-conspirator in whatever insane life we're about to build together. Isabella's eyes fill with tears, but she's smiling, the first genuinely happy smile he's seen from her since this whole nightmare began. Are you proposing to me again? I'm confirming my original proposal to the woman I'm actually going to marry. Alex takes her left hand, running his thumb over the engagement ring. Same ring, same promise, but this time we both know who we really are. Alex Chen, Isabella says, and his name in her voice sounds like a prayer. I would be honored to be your wife. Your real wife. They kiss surrounded by classified documents and legal paperwork, and it tastes like new beginnings and impossible hope. Over the next 2 weeks, they fall into a routine that feels surprisingly domestic despite the international espionage complications. Isabella cooks dinner while Alex handles the legal complexities of her asylum case. They watch movies curled together on his couch, debating plot holes and character motivations with a kind of passionate intensity that only comes from two people who've made careers out of analyzing human behavior. She helps him prepare for a major presentation to the Department of Defense, offering insights that are brilliant and terrifying in their accuracy. He helps her practice her testimony for the FBI, coaching her through the details that will determine whether she's granted asylum or deported to face charges in Italy. You're going to be fine, he tells her the night before her first official debriefing. They're lying in bed, Isabella's head on his chest, and he can feel the tension in her body despite her calm exterior. What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm still working for AISC? That this is all some elaborate double-agent operation? Then we'll prove them wrong. Alex's arms tighten around her. We'll prove that sometimes people really do change, really do choose love over loyalty, really do risk everything for a chance at something better. Is that what we're doing? Risking everything. Yeah. He presses a kiss to the top of her head. But Isabella, you're worth the risk. What we have is worth the risk. I keep thinking about the complexity of second chances. Do you believe someone can truly change their fundamental nature for love, or are we all just slightly different versions of who we've always been? The way Isabella and Alex are navigating this seems to suggest that love can be transformative, but I'm curious about your perspective. What do you think it takes to really earn a second chance after a betrayal this deep? The FBI interviews go better than expected. Agent Sarah Chen, no relation, despite Alex's initial panic, is thorough but fair, and Isabella's willingness to provide detailed intelligence about AISC operations clearly impresses the federal team. Within a week, she's granted preliminary asylum status pending a full investigation. Congratulations, Alex tells her that evening, opening a bottle of champagne he's been saving for the occasion. You're officially a protected witness in a federal investigation. How romantic, Isabella laughs, but there's relief in her voice that makes his chest warm. Though I have to admit, protected witness sounds better than enemy spy on a wedding invitation. Speaking of which, Alex says, suddenly nervous in a way that has nothing to do with international espionage, I was thinking we should set a date. Isabella nearly chokes on her champagne. A date? Alex, we're in the middle of the most complicated legal situation of our lives. I'm technically still under investigation by 3 different federal agencies. So? We'll have a very small ceremony. Just us, a judge, and probably a few FBI agents as witnesses. You're serious? Dead serious. Alex sets down his glass and takes her hands. Isabella, we've spent the last month proving that we can handle anything together. Espionage, betrayal, federal investigations. If we can navigate all of that, I think we can handle a wedding. But what if something goes wrong? What if Marco gets suspicious, or the asylum case falls through, or... Then we'll deal with it. Together. Alex cups her face in his palms, looking into the green eyes that have become his definition of home. I don't want to wait anymore, Isabella. I don't want to spend another day wondering if we're going to get our chance at happiness. Alex. Marry me, he says again, and this time it's not a proposal but a plea. Not because it's part of a mission or a cover story, but because you love me and I love you and we're tired of letting fear make our decisions for us. Isabella stares at him for a long moment, and he can see her wrestling with all the practical concerns, all the reasons why it's too soon, too complicated, too risky. Then she grins, that wild, reckless smile that made him fall in love with her in the first place. Okay, she says. Let's get married. Really? Really. But I have one condition. Anything. I want to wear your grandmother's ring. The one you showed me in the safe. The one that's been in your family for 3 generations. Isabella's voice is soft, vulnerable. I want to wear something that means you're not just marrying Isabella the spy, but Isabella the woman who wants to be part of your family for the rest of her life. Alex feels something shift in his chest, a final piece of the puzzle sliding into place. Because that's exactly what this is about. Not just love, but family. Not just romance, but partnership. Not just marriage, but the creation of something entirely new from the ashes of everything that came before. I'll call the jeweler in the morning, he promises, and when he kisses her, it tastes like forever. They spend the evening making plans, a small ceremony in 2 weeks, a honeymoon postponed until the legal complications are resolved, a future that suddenly seems not just possible but inevitable. It's perfect. Too perfect. Which is why Alex should have known that Marco Tessari was already 3 steps ahead of them, and their carefully constructed new beginning was about to become the most devastating ending of all. But sometimes the moments right before everything falls apart are the most beautiful ones of all. The call comes at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 1 week before their wedding. Alex is in the shower, humming an old Frank Sinatra song that Isabella has been playing obsessively while she plans their ceremony, when he hears her phone ringing in the bedroom. It's early for a call, but not unusual. Agent Chen has been checking in regularly as Isabella's asylum case progresses through the federal system. But when he steps out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, Isabella is sitting on the edge of their bed with the phone pressed to her ear, and her face has gone completely white. Si capisco, she's saying in rapid Italian, her voice tight with what sounds like panic. Ma non posso, but I can't. She looks up and sees Alex watching her, and for just a moment, something flickers across her face that makes his blood run cold. Not fear, not surprise, but something that looks almost like guilt? I have to go, she says into the phone, switching back to English. We'll talk later. Everything okay? Alex asks, but he's already reading the tension in her shoulders, the way she can't quite meet his eyes. Marco. Isabella sets down the phone with hands that are visibly shaking. He's here. In New York. What do you mean here? He flew in last night. He wants to meet. Isabella stands up, starts pacing the length of their bedroom like a caged animal. Alex, this is bad. Really bad. He shouldn't be here, shouldn't have come himself unless... Unless what? Isabella stops pacing and looks at him, and there's something in her expression that makes his chest tighten with dread. Unless he knows, she whispers. The next hour passes in a blur of frantic preparation. Isabella insists on meeting Marco alone, but Alex refuses to let her walk into what could be a trap. They compromise on a public location, Central Park, near the Alice in Wonderland statue where there will be plenty of witnesses and escape routes. He's probably just suspicious about my reports, Isabella says as they walk through the park, but her voice lacks conviction. Maybe he wants to debrief me in person, make sure I'm still committed to the operation. And if he knows you've been feeding him false intelligence? Then we run. Fast and far, and hope that your FBI contacts can keep us safe until we figure out what to do next. But Alex can see Marco before Isabella does. A tall, elegant man in an expensive suit standing beside the bronze mushroom, looking like he belongs in a European art gallery rather than a children's playground. There's something about his posture, his casual confidence, that immediately sets off every alarm bell in Alex's head. This is not a man who's been deceived by false intelligence reports. Isabella, Marco calls out in accented English, his voice warm and welcoming. My dear girl. It's so good to see you. And then Isabella does something that stops Alex's heart. She walks straight into Marco's embrace, lets him kiss both her cheeks in the traditional Italian greeting, and when she pulls back, she's smiling. Not the tense, fearful expression Alex was expecting, but a genuine relaxed smile that he recognizes from their most intimate moments together. Marco, Isabella says, and there's affection in her voice. Real affection. I was wondering when you'd finally come to check on me. You know I had to see for myself how my most talented operative was handling such a challenging assignment. Marco's eyes shift to Alex, and there's something predatory in his gaze. And you must be Alexander Chen. Isabella has told me so much about you. Isabella has told me so much about you. The words hit Alex like ice water, because the way Marco says them suggests that Isabella has been talking about him regularly, intimately, recently. I'm sure she has, Alex manages, his voice sounding foreign to his own ears. Oh yes, every detail. Your work, your habits, your psychological profile, your security protocols. Marco's smile is sharp, dangerous. Even your sexual preferences, though I assured Isabella that level of detail wasn't strictly necessary for the operation. Sexual preferences. Alex feels the world tilt sideways, because there's only one way Marco would know those details, and it's not from reading intelligence reports. He looks at Isabella, waiting for her to defend him, to explain, to show some sign of the outrage and embarrassment he'd expect from someone whose private relationship was being discussed so crudely by her former handler. Instead, Isabella looks uncomfortable. Embarrassed, yes, but in the way someone looks when they've been caught gossiping, not when they've been betrayed by a superior. Marco, she says with a slight laugh, you're embarrassing me. Embarrassing her. Not horrifying her, not outraging her, but embarrassing her. And that's when Alex realizes that everything, every single thing, has been a lie. The confession, he says slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. That night in my office when you broke down, when you told me the truth about who you were. That was all planned. Isabella's face goes very still, and in that stillness, Alex sees confirmation of his worst fears. Alex. The tears, the guilt, the story about falling in love with me and not being able to betray me anymore. All of it was scripted. It's not that simple. The asylum case. The FBI interviews. Our wedding plans. Each word feels like swallowing glass. How much of it was real, Isabella? Any of it. Marco is watching this exchange with obvious amusement, like he's enjoying a particularly entertaining theater performance. Oh, the asylum case is quite real, he says cheerfully. Though not quite what you think. You see, Alexander, Isabella's defection has been incredibly valuable to us. The Americans are so eager to flip foreign intelligence assets that they've given her access to information she never could have obtained as an ordinary spy. The Americans. Her access to information. Alex feels like he's drowning in revelation, each new piece of truth dragging him deeper underwater. The FBI debriefings, he breathes. She's been feeding you information from the FBI debriefings. Among other things. Marco's voice is positively gleeful. Did you know that your government has been investigating suspected AISE operations in 6 major American cities? Thanks to Isabella's cooperation, we've been able to shut down those investigations before they could compromise our other assets. Alex stares at Isabella, waiting for her to deny it, to explain, to give him some reason to believe that the woman he loves still exists somewhere underneath this nightmare. Isabella, he says, and her name breaks in his throat. Tell me he's lying. I can't, she whispers. And those two words destroy him completely. Because now he understands the scope of his betrayal. It's not just that Isabella has been spying on him, she's been using his love for her to compromise American national security. She's been feeding classified information to foreign intelligence, while pretending to be a defector seeking asylum. The wedding, he says numbly. Even the wedding was part of the plan. Marriage to an American citizen would have made her position much more secure, Marco confirms. Much harder to deport, much easier to explain her continued presence in your life and your work. Much easier to explain her continued presence in your life and your work. The words echo in Alex's head like a death knell, because now he realizes that the woman he was planning to marry in 6 days was planning to spend their entire marriage stealing from him. How long? The question scrapes against his throat like broken glass. How long have you been planning this? Isabella finally meets his eyes, and what he sees there, resignation, pity, something that might be genuine regret, makes him want to vomit. From the beginning, she says quietly. The confession, the tears, the story about turning against Marco, it was all designed to make you feel like you were saving me. Like you were the hero in some romantic thriller. Because men like you have such a savior complex, Marco adds helpfully. Brilliant, successful, but emotionally isolated. You want to believe that your love can redeem someone, can transform them into something better. Isabella played that fantasy perfectly. Men like you. As if Alex is just another type, another profile, another mark to be manipulated and discarded. The ring, Alex says suddenly, remembering. My grandmother's ring. You wanted to wear my grandmother's ring. Isabella's face crumples slightly, and for a moment, she looks like the woman he thought he knew. Alex, that part was real. My feelings about wanting to be part of your family, about wanting something permanent with you. Stop. The word comes out like a gunshot. Just stop. I can't tell what's real and what's performance anymore, and I don't think you can either. That's not true. Isn't it? Alex feels something cold and hard settling in his chest, a protective shell forming around his shattered heart. Tell me, Isabella, when you were lying in my bed last night, talking about our honeymoon plans, were you thinking about me or about the classified files you'd be able to access as my wife? Isabella doesn't answer, which is answer enough. Here's what I can't stop thinking about. Is it possible for someone to genuinely love the person they're systematically betraying, or does the betrayal automatically negate the love? Isabella seems to have real feelings for Alex, but she's still choosing the mission over him. What do you think? Can love and betrayal truly coexist, or is one always stronger than the other? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. The truly beautiful thing, Marco continues, apparently oblivious to the emotional carnage he's creating, is how thoroughly you've compromised yourself. The classified information you've shared with Isabella, the government contacts you've introduced her to, the security protocols you've discussed in her presence, all of it has been invaluable. I never shared classified information with her, Alex protests, but even as he says it, he's remembering countless conversations, casual mentions of projects and contracts and timelines that he'd never thought twice about sharing with the woman he loved. Didn't you? Marco pulls out a tablet, scrolls through what looks like pages of typed notes. The Aegis defense contract, worth $2.3 billion. The neural network architecture for predictive combat analysis. The security vulnerabilities in the Pentagon's new AI advisory system. He looks up at Alex with mock sympathy. Should I go on? Each item on the list hits Alex like a physical blow, because he remembers discussing every single one of them with Isabella. Late-night conversations in his office, dinner table debates about ethics and technology, pillow talk about his concerns and frustrations with government bureaucracy. Pillow talk. The phrase makes him sick, because now he realizes that Isabella has been conducting the most intimate form of espionage possible, stealing secrets from the man who trusted her with everything. You recorded our private conversations, he says, and it's not a question. Audio, video, even biometric data during your more intimate moments. Marco's smile is positively vicious. It's amazing what people will reveal when they think they're safe, when they think they're loved. When they think they're loved. The words hit Alex like a sledgehammer, because that's exactly what this has been, the illusion of love used as a weapon against him. He looks at Isabella one more time, searching her face for some sign of the woman he thought he knew, some indication that any part of their relationship had been real. Did you ever love me? He asks, and his voice sounds like a stranger's. Isabella's eyes fill with tears, but Alex can no longer tell if they're genuine or just another performance. "Alex," she whispers, "it's complicated." "It's not complicated," he interrupts, surprised by how calm his voice sounds. "It's actually very simple. Did you ever love me, or was every moment between us just part of your job?" Isabella looks at Marco, then back at Alex, and in that moment of hesitation, Alex has his answer. "I see," he says quietly. "Alex, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly." Alex takes a step back, then another, putting distance between himself and the woman who has systematically destroyed his life. "I understand that I've been the biggest fool in New York City. I understand that every kiss, every touch, every whispered "I love you" was just Isabella Romano doing her job exceptionally well." "That's not." "It is." Alex's voice is getting stronger, colder, more controlled. "And you know what? Congratulations. You've succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. You've stolen classified information worth billions of dollars, compromised American national security, and completely destroyed the first man who was stupid enough to fall in love with you." Isabella is crying now, ugly, broken sobs that might be genuine or might be the final performance of a master manipulator. Alex no longer cares which. "Enjoy your success, Isabella. Enjoy spending the rest of your life knowing that you're capable of destroying someone who loved you completely." He turns to walk away, but Marco's voice stops him. "Oh, Alexander. We're not quite finished yet." Alex turns back, and there's something in Marco's expression that makes his blood run cold. "You see, all of this, Isabella's confession, her asylum case, your romantic reconciliation, it was never about gathering intelligence. We already had everything we needed months ago. Then what was it about?" Marco's smile is the most terrifying thing Alex has ever seen. "It was about positioning you to take the fall for the biggest intelligence breach in American history. And thanks to Isabella's sterling work, you're about to become the most wanted traitor in the United States." The most wanted traitor in the United States. The words echo in Alex's head like a death sentence, because suddenly he understands the true scope of what's been done to him. They haven't just stolen his secrets and broken his heart. They've destroyed his entire life. Alex doesn't remember the walk back to his penthouse. One moment he's standing in Central Park watching his entire world implode, and the next he's sitting on his living room floor, staring at the engagement ring Isabella left on the coffee table like it's a live grenade. She must have dropped it there before she left with Marco, though Alex has no memory of when that happened. Time has become elastic, unreliable, minutes stretching into hours, hours collapsing into seconds of sharp, unbearable clarity. The ring catches the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, throwing tiny rainbow fragments across the walls. He'd spent weeks selecting it, agonizing over every detail because he'd wanted it to be perfect for the woman he thought he was going to marry. The woman who never existed. His phone has been ringing constantly, his assistant, his head of security, reporters who somehow already know that something catastrophic has happened to Chen Industries. Alex lets them all go to voicemail, their voices becoming background noise to the white static filling his head. The FBI arrives at 4:17 p.m. Agent Sarah Chen stands in his doorway with 3 other federal agents, all of them wearing the kind of grim expressions that signal the end of everything you've ever worked for. "Mr. Chen," Agent Chen says, and her voice is professionally neutral in a way that makes his stomach drop. "We need to discuss some irregularities in your fiancé's asylum case." "Ex-fiancée," Alex wants to correct, but the words stick in his throat like broken glass. They sit in his living room, the same room where he and Isabella had spread legal documents across the floor just weeks ago, planning their future together. The agents arrange themselves with military precision, tablets and recording devices, creating a barrier between Alex and any hope of this being a simple misunderstanding. "We've discovered that Miss Romano has been providing false information during her debriefings," Agent Chen continues. "Information that directly contradicts intelligence we've gathered from other sources." "False information," Alex repeats numbly. "Moreover, we have reason to believe that she's been using her protected status to facilitate ongoing espionage operations." Agent Chen's eyes are sympathetic but implacable. "Mr. Chen, we need you to tell us exactly what classified information you may have discussed with Miss Romano during your relationship." The question hangs in the air like a blade, because Alex knows that any answer he gives will be a confession. Either he's been deliberately sharing classified information with a foreign agent, which makes him a traitor, or he's been so recklessly infatuated that he's compromised national security through sheer stupidity. Both feel equally damning. "I want a lawyer," Alex says, which is the first intelligent thing he's said in hours. "Of course. That's your right." Agent Chen closes her tablet with a soft click. "But Mr. Chen, I want you to understand something. Right now, you're a victim of a very sophisticated intelligence operation. But if we discover that you've been knowingly cooperating with foreign agents, that status could change very quickly." Victim. The word tastes like ashes in his mouth, because Alex Chen has never been anyone's victim. He's built an empire through intelligence, determination, and ruthless strategic thinking. He's negotiated with senators and generals, commanded rooms full of the most powerful people in America. And he's been completely, thoroughly, devastatingly outmaneuvered by a woman who made him coffee every morning and laughed at his terrible jokes. After the FBI leaves, Alex sits in his empty penthouse and tries to process the magnitude of his situation. His company's stock price has dropped 30% in the last 6 hours. His government contracts are under review. His security clearance has been suspended pending investigation. 18 months of his life, reduced to evidence in a federal espionage case. The worst part isn't the professional devastation, though that's catastrophic enough. The worst part is the way his memories have been contaminated. Every happy moment with Isabella now carries the bitter taste of deception. Their first kiss, their first night together, the morning she'd said yes to his proposal, all of it poisoned by the knowledge that she was performing a role. Had she practiced those expressions in a mirror? Rehearsed the exact way her voice would break when she whispered his name? Alex finds himself in his office at 2 a.m., staring at the spot where the orchid used to sit. He'd thrown it away after discovering the camera, but the empty space seems to mock him now, a reminder of how thoroughly he'd been played. His computer screen shows 17 missed calls from his sister, 43 unread emails from his legal team, and a news alert that makes his blood run cold. Tech CEO Alexander Chen under investigation for possible espionage ties. Possible espionage ties. As if his relationship with Isabella had been a business partnership instead of what he believed was the deepest emotional connection of his life. The article is brutal in its efficiency, laying out the basic facts with surgical precision. Prominent defense contractor. Foreign intelligence operative. Romantic relationship. Classified information potentially compromised. The reporter has clearly done their homework, probably fed information by sources within the FBI who want to control the narrative. Alex's photo, a professional headshot from his company's website, stares back at him from the screen. He looks confident, successful, completely oblivious to the disaster that was already unfolding around him when the picture was taken. 18 months ago, you thought you had everything figured out, he tells his past self. You thought you were the smartest person in every room. The phone rings, startling him out of his bitter reverie. For a moment, his heart stops, because some pathetic part of him hopes it might be Isabella calling to explain, to apologize, to tell him that some part of their relationship had been real. Instead, it's his sister. Alex. Maria's voice is tight with worry. I've been trying to reach you for hours. The news is saying. It's all true, he says, cutting her off. Every word of it. Alex, no. There has to be some explanation. Isabella loves you. I've seen the way she looks at you. The way she looks at me. Alex closes his eyes, remembering Isabella's face during their last conversation. The way she'd seemed genuinely torn, genuinely regretful. Had that been real, or just another layer of the performance? Maria, he says carefully, Isabella is a professional intelligence operative. Looking like she loves me is literally what she was trained to do. But the engagement, the wedding plans. All part of the operation. Each word feels like swallowing razor blades. She never loved me, Maria. She was just very, very good at her job. There's a long silence on the other end of the line, and Alex can practically hear his sister processing this information, trying to reconcile the woman she'd welcomed into their family with a spy who'd been systematically betraying them. Oh, Alex, Maria finally whispers. I'm so sorry. And that's when it hits him, the full weight of what he's lost. Not just Isabella, not just his career, but his ability to trust his own judgment. His confidence in his ability to read people, to protect himself, to distinguish between truth and manipulation. How many other relationships in his life might be built on lies? How many other people might be using him for their own purposes? The paranoia spreads through his mind like poison, turning every friendship into a potential deception, every business relationship into a possible con game. If Isabella could fool him so completely, who else might be lying to him? His business partners? His employees? His own family? I have to go, he tells Maria, and hangs up before she can respond. The next few days pass in a haze of legal meetings, media speculation, and the gradual dismantling of everything he's built. His lawyers, expensive, competent, ruthlessly practical, explain his options with the detached professionalism of morticians discussing funeral arrangements. The best-case scenario, his lead attorney explains, is that the investigation concludes you were an unwitting victim of a sophisticated intelligence operation. Your security clearance gets restored, your contracts get renewed, and you rebuild your reputation over the next 5 to 10 years. And the worst case. You're charged with knowingly providing classified information to foreign agents. Espionage Act violations carry sentences of 10 years to life in federal prison. 10 years to life. The numbers bounce around in Alex's head like ricocheting bullets, because he's starting to understand that his future, if he has one, will be determined by people who don't know him, don't care about him, and have no reason to believe his version of events. What would you do in Alex's situation? When your entire reality has been shattered and you can't trust your own judgment anymore, how do you even begin to rebuild? It seems impossible to move forward when you can't tell what was real and what was manipulation. I'm curious about your thoughts on how someone recovers from that level of betrayal. Share your perspective in the comments below. By the end of the week, Alex has lost 12 pounds, hasn't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch in 6 days, and can't remember the last time he ate something that didn't come from a vending machine in his legal team's building. He's sitting in his empty office at 3 a.m., surrounded by boxes of files that the FBI will be collecting in the morning, when he finds it. The note is tucked inside a legal brief that Isabella had reviewed months ago, written in her distinctive handwriting on a piece of his personal stationery. At first, he thinks it's just another piece of evidence, another reminder of how thoroughly she'd integrated herself into his professional life. But then he reads it. Alex, I know you'll probably never forgive me, and you shouldn't. But I need you to know that the moment I realized I was falling in love with you was the moment I started hating myself for what I was doing to you. You deserved better than me. You deserved the truth. I'm sorry I was too much of a coward to give it to you when it mattered. The note is dated 3 months ago, right around the time Isabella claimed she'd stopped providing useful intelligence to Marco, right around the time she'd supposedly started protecting Alex instead of betraying him. Is it real, or just another manipulation? The question tears through him, because he can't tell anymore. Can't distinguish between genuine remorse and calculated emotional manipulation, between authentic feeling and professional performance. But holding the note, seeing Isabella's handwriting, remembering the way she'd looked when she told him she loved him, for the first time in a week, Alex feels something other than numbness and rage. He feels the faintest spark of something that might be determination. Because maybe Isabella really had been playing a role for most of their relationship. Maybe her confession had been scripted, her tears rehearsed, her love a carefully constructed lie. But the woman who'd written this note, scared, guilt-ridden, trapped between duty and feeling, that woman had seemed real. Had seemed like someone worth trying to understand, even if she'd been too much of a coward to tell him the truth when it mattered. And if she was real, if any part of what they'd had together was genuine, then maybe there's still a chance to save something from this wreckage. Alex looks around his office one more time, at the empty walls, the packed boxes, the remnants of a life that's been systematically dismantled by his own government and the woman he'd planned to marry. Then he picks up his phone and dials a number he's memorized but never called. Agent Chen, he says when she answers on the third ring. This is Alexander Chen. I know it's late, but I think I have information that might help your investigation. What kind of information, Mr. Chen? Alex looks down at Isabella's note, at the handwritten confession of a woman caught between love and loyalty, truth and deception. The kind that might save all of us, he says. Because sometimes the only way out of hell is straight through it. And sometimes the person who destroyed your life is the only one who can help you rebuild it. The FBI safe house in Queens looks like every other suburban home on the block. Beige siding, small front yard, the kind of place where secrets go to hide in plain sight. Alex sits in the passenger seat of Agent Chen's unmarked sedan, staring at the house where Isabella has been staying for the past 3 days, and tries to calm the hurricane of emotions threatening to tear him apart. She's been cooperating, Agent Chen says, checking her watch. Full disclosure about AISE operations, detailed intelligence on Marco's network, everything we need to roll up their entire American operation. In exchange for what? Witness protection. New identity. A chance to disappear and start over somewhere Marco can never find her. A chance to disappear. The words hit Alex like a physical blow, because he's just realized that even if Isabella has been telling the truth about her feelings, even if some part of their relationship was real, she's about to vanish from his life forever. Unless, Agent Chen continues, watching his face carefully, you still want to go through with this plan of yours. Alex looks down at the folder in his lap, the proposal he'd spent the last 72 hours crafting with his legal team, a plan so audacious and risky that his attorneys had made him sign a dozen waivers before they'd agreed to present it to the FBI. It's insane, he says, which isn't the first time he's had this thought. Yes, it is. Agent Chen's voice is matter of fact. It's also our best chance of capturing Marco and neutralizing the remaining AISE assets. The question is whether you're prepared for what it might cost you. What it might cost me. Alex almost laughs, because he's already lost everything that mattered to him. His company is in ruins, his reputation is destroyed, his heart is in pieces. What more could this plan possibly take from him? Only your life, a voice in his head whispers. Only everything you have left. I'm ready, he says, and Agent Chen nods once before getting out of the car. The house smells like coffee and industrial disinfectant, the kind of generic cleanliness that speaks of temporary occupancy. Isabella is sitting at the kitchen table when Alex walks in, and seeing her again after a week of nightmares and federal investigations feels like stepping into an alternate universe. She looks smaller than he remembers, fragile in a way that makes his chest ache. Her auburn hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she's wearing jeans and a sweater that he doesn't recognize, clothes provided by the federal marshals probably, since she'd left his penthouse with nothing but the engagement ring she'd abandoned on his coffee table. Alex. His name is a whisper on her lips, and when she looks up at him, her eyes are red-rimmed with exhaustion and something that might be grief. Isabella. They stare at each other across the small kitchen, and Alex can feel Agent Chen watching them both, cataloging every micro-expression for her psychological profile. There's so much he wants to say, so many questions he needs answered, but with federal agents listening to every word, all he can do is sit down across from her and try to read the truth in her face. They told me you wanted to see me, Isabella says carefully. That you had some kind of proposal. I do. Alex opens the folder, but keeps his eyes on her face. But first, I need you to answer a question. And this time, I need the truth. The real truth, not some carefully constructed story designed to manipulate me. Isabella's throat works as she swallows, and he can see her hands trembling slightly where they rest on the table. Okay. The note, Alex says, pulling out the piece of paper that's been burning a hole in his pocket for 3 days. The one you left in the legal brief. Did you write it because you meant it, or because you knew I'd eventually find it and it would serve some purpose in your operation? Isabella stares at the note, and for a moment, something raw and vulnerable flickers across her face. I wrote it, she says quietly, because I was falling apart. Because I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't look at myself in the mirror without hating what I saw. Because I was desperately in love with a man I was systematically betraying, and it was killing me. Desperately in love, Alex repeats, and there's something in his voice that makes Isabella look up sharply. Yes. When did it start? The real feelings, not the performance. Isabella closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, there are tears on her cheeks. The night you explained your AI ethics framework to me. You were so passionate about preventing autonomous weapons, about making sure technology served humanity instead of destroying it. Her voice breaks slightly. I realized that everything I'd been told about you was wrong. You weren't some heartless defense contractor. You were trying to save the world, and I was helping to destroy the man who might actually be able to do it. But you didn't stop, Alex says, and there's no accusation in his voice, just a need to understand. You kept feeding information to Marco. For a while, yes. Because I was a coward. Because I was terrified of what would happen if I tried to extract myself from the operation. Isabella wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. But Alex, I swear to you, everything I gave Marco after that night was useless. False data, misdirection, complete fabrications designed to waste his time and resources. And the confession? The night you broke down in my office. Partially scripted, Isabella admits, and Alex feels something cold settle in his stomach. Marco had started getting suspicious about my lack of useful intelligence. He ordered me to stage a crisis, to make you feel like you were saving me so you trust me completely. Partially scripted. The words hit him like a slap. But Alex, Isabella continues, leaning forward urgently, the emotions were real. The tears, the fear, the desperate need to tell you the truth, all of that was real. I was supposed to fake a breakdown, but what happened instead was that I actually broke down. Everything I told you about falling in love with you, about not being able to betray you anymore, that was the truth. Alex stares at her, trying to process the impossible complexity of what she's telling him. A performance that became reality, a lie that transformed into truth, love that grew in the space between deception and authenticity. How do I know that's not what you're supposed to say, he asks. How do I know this isn't just another layer of the operation? Because, Isabella says, and her voice is steady now, fierce with conviction, I'm about to destroy my entire life to prove it to you. She turns to Agent Chen, who's been listening from the doorway with professional interest. I want to change my testimony, Isabella says. I want to tell you about the real operation. Not the one Marco thinks I've been running, but the one I've actually been running for the past 6 months. Agent Chen steps into the room, tablet in hand. What kind of operation, Miss Romano? Counterintelligence. I've been feeding Marco false information, yes, but I've also been documenting everything. His contacts, his methods, his other assets in the United States. I have names, locations, communication protocols, financial records. Isabella's eyes never leave Alex's face. Everything you need to roll up his entire network. Why didn't you tell us this before? Because I wanted to protect Alex. If I gave you everything immediately, Marco would know I'd been turned, and Alex would become a target. I needed to be sure you could protect him before I burned my cover completely. Alex feels something shift in his chest, a loosening of the knot of betrayal that's been strangling him for a week. Because if Isabella is telling the truth, then she's been playing a triple game, pretending to spy for Italy while actually protecting America, pretending to betray Alex while actually saving him. And now she's willing to risk everything to prove it. Isabella, he says carefully, if you give them this information, Marco will know you've been working against him. He'll come after you. I know. He'll kill you if he finds you. I know that too. Isabella's smile is sad but determined. But Alex, I can't keep living this lie. I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not, even if it keeps me safe. I'd rather die as the woman who loved you than live as the spy who betrayed you. I'd rather die as the woman who loved you than live as the spy who betrayed you. The words hit Alex like lightning, illuminating everything he's been struggling to understand about Isabella, about their relationship, about the impossible tangle of truth and deception that's defined their love. There's another option, he says, opening the folder Agent Chen has been waiting for him to reveal. A way for you to prove your loyalty, help the FBI capture Marco, and maybe, give us a chance to build something real together. Isabella stares at the documents he spreads across the table, and Alex watches her face change as she realizes what he's proposing. You want me to be bait, she says. I want you to help me finish what we started. One last con, but this time we're running it together. This is the moment where everything hangs in the balance. Alex is asking Isabella to trust him completely, and he's choosing to trust her despite everything she's done. Do you think real love can be built on such a foundation of mutual risk and sacrifice? When two people have both been living lies, can they find truth together? Let me know what you think in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts on these complex relationship dynamics. The plan is elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its execution. Isabella will contact Marco, tell him that Alex has discovered her real identity and is threatening to expose her unless she provides him with intelligence about AISE operations. She'll arrange a meeting where Alex will pretend to offer Marco a deal, classified information in exchange for Isabella's safety. Marco's ego won't let him resist, Isabella explains as they review the details. He'll want to gloat, to show Alex how thoroughly he's been outmaneuvered. And he'll want to flip Alex into a double agent, use his government connections to gather even more valuable intelligence. And when he shows up to the meeting, the FBI will be waiting. Agent Chen's voice is grim, along with enough surveillance equipment to record every word of his confession. It's dangerous, Marco is a professional intelligence operative with decades of experience and a network of resources that could make Alex and Isabella disappear permanently. But it's also their best chance to end this nightmare and maybe, somehow, find a way to build a future together. If we do this, Alex says to Isabella as they prepare for the most important performance of both their lives, if we survive this, I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more lies. Ever. Not little ones, not big ones, not lies of omission or white lies or lies to protect me. If we're going to try to make this work, if we're going to try to love each other for real, then we start with complete honesty. Isabella nods, and there's something in her eyes that looks like relief. No more lies, she agrees. No more pretending to be someone I'm not. Just Isabella Romano, former spy, current mess, future. Whatever we decide to build together. Future whatever we decide to build together, Alex repeats, and for the first time in a week, he smiles. The meeting is set for midnight at the same location where this all began. Central Park, near the Alice in Wonderland statue where Marco had first revealed the scope of Alex's betrayal. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone, least of all Marco, who arrives precisely on time with a kind of theatrical flair that's made him legendary in intelligence circles. Alexander, Marco calls out as Alex approaches the bronze sculpture, Isabella's hand trembling in his. I must say, I'm impressed. I didn't think you had it in you to become a proper spy. I'm a quick learner, Alex replies, and there's something in his voice that makes Marco's eyes narrow slightly. Indeed. Isabella tells me you've had quite the revelation about your relationship, and that you're prepared to be reasonable about your situation. I'm prepared to be practical. Alex keeps his voice steady, professional, even though his heart is hammering against his ribs. I know what you've done to me, what you've taken from me. The question is what you're prepared to give me in return. Give you. Marco laughs, but there's something sharp in the sound. My dear boy, you're hardly in a position to make demands. Aren't I? Alex pulls out a tablet, shows Marco a screen full of classified defense contracts. I still have access to everything you want. Government databases, military specifications, research that could be worth billions to the right buyer. The question is whether you want to work with me or against me. Marco's eyes light up with greed and something that might be respect. Go on. I provide you with intelligence. Real intelligence, not the garbage Isabella's been feeding you for months. In exchange, you guarantee her safety and help me rebuild my reputation. Make it look like I was an unwitting victim instead of a willing collaborator. And why, Marco says slowly, would I trust you after everything that's happened? Because, Alex says, and his voice carries a bitterness that doesn't require any acting, I love her. Despite everything she's done to me, despite the fact that she's destroyed my life, I still love her. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. It's the truth, raw and painful and impossible to fake. Marco hears it, recognizes it, and Alex can see the moment when the intelligence operative decides that Alexander Chen is just another broken man willing to betray his country for love. Very well, Marco says, stepping closer. Let's discuss terms. And that's when the FBI strikes. The arrest is swift, professional, and absolutely devastating. Marco doesn't even have time to run before he's surrounded by federal agents with enough firepower to stop a small army. His carefully constructed cover identity crumbles in minutes, his network of contacts exposed, his operations neutralized with a kind of surgical precision that only comes from months of careful preparation. Marco Tessari, Agent Chen announces as the handcuffs click into place. You're under arrest for espionage, conspiracy, and violations of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. Alex watches as the man who orchestrated his destruction is led away in handcuffs, and feels something that might be justice settling in his chest. It's over, Isabella whispers beside him, and when he looks at her she's crying, not with grief or fear, but with relief so profound it takes his breath away. It's over, he agrees, and pulls her into his arms. They hold each other in the shadow of the Alice in Wonderland statue, surrounded by FBI agents and crime scene technicians, and Alex realizes that this is what victory looks like. Not the complete restoration of everything they've lost, not the erasure of all the pain they've caused each other, but the chance to start over with truth as their foundation. So, Isabella says when they finally separate, what happens now? Alex looks at her, really looks at her, and sees not the perfect spy who seduced him or the broken woman who confessed her betrayal, but simply Isabella. Complicated, flawed, brave enough to risk everything for love, and finally, completely honest. Now, he says, we figure out who we really are when we're not lying to each other. And if we don't like what we find, then we'll figure that out too. Together. Isabella smiles, the first genuinely happy smile he's seen from her since this nightmare began, and reaches for his hand. I love you, Alexander Chen, she says. The real you, not the mark I was assigned to manipulate. I love your terrible jokes and your perfectionist tendencies and the way you hum in the shower when you think no one's listening. I love you too, Isabella Romano, Alex replies. Former spy, current pain in my ass, future wife if you'll still have me. Wife. Isabella's eyes widen. We never officially called off the engagement, Alex points out. And I still have my grandmother's ring. The question is whether you still want to wear it. Isabella doesn't answer with words. Instead, she kisses him, fierce and desperate and full of promise, right there in Central Park surrounded by federal agents and the wreckage of their old lives. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Agent Chen approaches with a slight smile. Congratulations, she says, on the successful operation, and on figuring out that love is more complicated than anyone warns you about. More complicated and more worth it, Alex agrees, and Isabella laughs. A sound like music, like freedom, like the beginning of everything they're going to build together. 6 months later, they're married in a small ceremony in Alex's sister's backyard, with Agent Chen as their witness and Sophia as their flower girl. Isabella wears Alex's grandmother's ring and a simple white dress, and when she says, I do, Alex knows with absolute certainty that she means it. Their life isn't perfect. Alex's company is still rebuilding. Isabella is still adjusting to life as a former spy, and they're both still learning how to trust each other completely. But it's real in a way their old relationship never was, built on truth and choice and the kind of love that's strong enough to survive betrayal. No regrets. Isabella asks on their wedding night, curled against Alex's chest in the hotel room where they're spending their honeymoon. Just one, Alex says, and Isabella tenses slightly. What? I regret that it took espionage and federal investigation to find out who we really are together. Isabella relaxes, laughing softly. Well, when you put it that way, maybe we should send Marco a thank you card. Let's not get carried away, Alex says, but he's smiling too. Because sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the greatest betrayals. Sometimes the people who destroy your life are the same ones who teach you how to rebuild it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, you get a second chance to love someone with complete honesty. Alexander Chen and Isabella Romano learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth fighting for, even when the fight is against your own fears and failures. And sometimes, that's the most beautiful love story of all.